Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are continuing our coverage of the Psycho River killer, Eun-hae. She's in custody right now with her boyfriend, accused of planning a murder which came in the form of a drowning of her husband to collect on an expiring life insurance policy. Now people are wondering what kind of person would do this, and in particular, today we're going to focus on what kind of childhood did she have that could have led to such a person being thrust upon us in this world. So we're going to explore, was she born this way, or did she have some circumstances as a child? Well, at least we can piece together what we do know. So something really creepy about this situation is that we have seen this girl on TV before. About 20 years ago, there was this program called Love House here in Korea, and it profiled, I think it was sort of like a feel-good show about profiling people in Korea who had disadvantages, and they would do something nice, I believe, to renovate their houses or something. And she was profiled as a child of a family with two disabled parents. Her mother, I believe, was literally couldn't walk. Her dad was in a wheelchair, and she was only 13 years old. She was in the 6th grade, and she lit up the screen, and the host, who was interviewed this month about this whole scandal and asked, do you remember this? He said, I don't remember her face, but her case was one of the episodes that I remember the most, because I was so touched with how such a young person would have this sense of responsibility and care for her parents. And she even said, of all the things and all the benefits that I received, I want to give back to society one day when I grow up. Yeah, well, she certainly chose a path to give back in a way that took a lot out of society. And so there are a lot of psychologists in Korea now. You'd be surprised with with the way that Korean people generally do not like to admit to going for mental health care treatments, but there is now a growing body of healthcare professionals who are really good at their job and who are really out there in the media communicating very well, and they are saying that she already then was displaying psychopathic traits in the way of being able to, in particular, really know how to work and game the system of, in Korea, you have to, especially at that age, the more perfect and polite you appear to be, the greater your standing will go. The more protection or cover you can get, essentially. And I would say, especially in her case of having two disabled parents, poor parents, who would be extremely looked down upon with a lot of shame, her being able to be extremely nice, the kind, the angel persona, would give her protection from any sort of hate that would come her way, any kind of disrespect that would come her way, because she would be able to wash that out with being the perfect angel, the polite, perfectly mannered young Korean girl. And when media crew went around recently to kind of track her youth and asked her neighbors and people who they ran into, even the neighborhood pharmacist, they said, she was the perfect person who did the greeting. And in Korea, It's called insa, which basically means like, how do you say, your salutations? Hello, how are you? And basically it's like, like that kind of a thing. Hello, goodbye. The kids, especially the cute little kids who can do this really well, they get so many brownie points. And they said that she did that super well. So people are shocked, like, oh, normal people. Okay, so that's the thing. If you're not a psychologist and you're a normal person, you're like, how does a person like that turn into such a person who most likely looks like she committed such horrendous crimes that are so devoid of any human empathy? Well, the psychologists would probably say, and they have said, that by the time she was already 13, that this personality disorder had already been set in. If you have not had enough care, love, empathy by the time you're 5 or 6 years old, you will develop this harsh view of the world where then you have to manipulate because you see how cruel people can be and that there is no feeling, there is no warmth. It's a cold world where you just have to try to get as much as you can through manipulation. And by then she was able to figure out the core key ways of being the nice girl in order to get something out of society. And so we saw her in this show at 13 looking like a perfect angel. Then 2 years later, she ran away from home. Then apparently what happened is that she got involved in what they call dates for hire, essentially being like an escort and then falling into like the whole teenage, that kind of a business. And then she got pregnant along the way. And so we see that she falls in with the wrong crowd and she is living with what they call a runaway family. So what a lot of kids these days, if you're running away from home, is to kind of group together, and then they call it like 가출팸. So 가출 is basically runaway and family. And so remember, if you're part of this channel and the first time you've heard 가출, you might have heard that through the SJM case when the police tried to fraudulently label SJM as a runaway girl on their police report because they know that like runaway girls are the least respected and kind of like really looked down upon and really vulnerable in society. And just as an aside, this is probably why she is getting the full hammer of justice, because there's no kind of like protection from her. And also, just as an aside, this girl is not that stupid. She said that she was hiding away for as long as she could in order to save up $300,000. Why? Because she wanted a lawyer from Kim In-jang. Kim In-jang is essentially the nation's elite law firm that can get you out of anything. Like all of the biggest corporations in Korea, they all have like Kim In-jang. You need $30,000 even if you want like the first meeting. So this girl already knew how to price out like how to get out of, how to get away with murder. I guess that's the price over there. I don't know. She probably priced it out somehow, but she couldn't get the money, and she supposedly turned herself in with her boyfriend, but they are refusing testimony because they say they do not have a lawyer yet, and they are refusing the lawyers that are being provided by the state, saying like, we don't want those lawyers. We want like, she probably wants a good lawyer, but she probably can't get a fancy lawyer, so she's sort of stuck right now, and so she's refusing testimony. But back to her childhood. So essentially that's where we're seeing her grow up and develop, and there are police records that show that she has been in trouble with the law dozens of times for these meetings with strings attached, and these men reported that she stole their wallets, she stole valuables from them. And so obviously from a young early age, a lot of the psychologists are saying is that she started to view men as only as tools to get money quickly or as a source of cash to siphon out, and that she developed a mechanism to increasingly find ways to get larger and larger amounts. From our Room Salon Secrets video, you can also see that the term in that industry is 공사. And so if you look at even the way that she structured her newlywed house with the deceased husband, it falls into that formula where you pretend you're gonna get together, and in this case she went as far as marriage, but usually these girls don't get as far as marriage. They just say, like, let's just get a house together, but they don't really live there, they pretend to live there. And so she didn't even have that guy move in, her husband move in. She just lived with her friends there for a few months, probably because it was quite far away in Incheon, which is near the airport. Speaking of the airport, this is somewhat of a related aside. I just got some inside information from the airport, somebody who works there, that, you know, the whole N-room case that we just covered in a couple episodes before, you know, the whole digital sex crimes, the hidden camera scandal. Well, apparently they did publish a list of names and photos of people, some of the members of those rooms on the internet, but then they kind of took it down really quick. But while it was up, people were like looking and seeing, like, you know, who they might know. And actually one of the managers at the Shake Shack restaurant at the Incheon International Airport Terminal 2 was a member of one of the N-room chat rooms. And so right now, because of the whole, you know, a virus situation, the Shake Shack hasn't been open for, I believe, about 2 years. But apparently that was like shocking to everybody in the airport. I was just like, yeah, that makes total sense. And they were like, why? It's like, yeah, because this is the airport, so most likely he was able to try to get some cameras into the bathrooms at the airport. But then the people were like, yeah, but if he was a guy, he probably wouldn't be able to go into the girls' bathroom because there's tons of CCTV. I was like, yeah, but as a manager, he could probably persuade somebody, either like somebody who might be his girlfriend, to go do it, or to pressure or threaten one of his employees who was a girl to do it. And I can totally see how, like, in this type of a case, you find, if he was a manager, he tries to hire probably somebody who's like a runaway kid, just like perhaps one of these girls, and pressure her into doing something like this and offering her something in return that's more than just a check from, like, a tiny paycheck from a fast food job at Shake Shack. And so this is the way that this economy runs, where, like, the way that Runaways can survive in Korea by doing these nefarious things, and that's fueled by this whole underground economy. And you could see that from an early age she learned how to do this, and the problem is that it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it affects more and more people's lives, and the cover-ups get worse and worse, and the amount of people's families that get crushed by this become more and more. And you can see that she gets away with it by being more and more heartless and covering it up with this ability to look like the perfect angel. And yes, she did have plastic surgery along the way. Apparently she spent about $20,000 to $30,000. She converted her face and, converted her chest and stuff like that. And then, of course, that would help her business. That is how we get from at least what we know from her as a teenager, a young teen, all the way up to her young 20s. That was like the childhood that we were able to see, at least, and some of the psychological analysis and profile. Most likely it looks like, trauma definitely at an early age, but I would say probably if it's very extreme in her case, because, she's definitely laughing and giggling all the times that she was traumatizing her so-called husband, it looks like she could also probably be born with some of these traits as well. Of course, now that she's locked up, they could probably get a forensic psychologist in there and give like the complete analysis, and we could probably see a little bit more on that. And in a different earlier investigation with the police, she did fail a lie detector test. Anyhow, guys, so that's the latest update on that. We'll have more. I'm just trying to keep it organized so that, it's not too much information overwhelming you at once. Leave your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.